Dr. Coach Dragon, now that we're in the fourth weekend, is it time, despite releasing in Japan, Wish, still in the 100 million worldwide mark, despite what Pixie Dusters say, is Wish another fail for Iger's legacy? I think Pixie Dusters will be worse in 2024. I think it goes without saying, Coach O, that yes, Wish is absolutely a massive failure. And in any normal year, it would be a contender for the biggest flop of all time. Fortunately for Wish, it is easily outpaced by the Marvels and Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny. Panel, any other thoughts on Wish and its abject abomination of a financial return?
Not me. I didn't give them my money.
Well, now you make me feel bad. I had to review it. It's not my fault. From
That is a
Santiago
drag.
Flores for $5. Good afternoon. How much percentage of stock would Mr. Peltz and his allies need to take over Disney without a proxy fight? Well, we're in the proxy fight, so you can't undo the proxy fight until the proxy fight is done. That's going to require some votes. We got to find out, will Mr. Peltz get on the board? Will he be able to put Jay Rasulo, former chief financial officer of Disney, onto the board as well? The last time this happened in proxy fight number 1, Nelson Peltz was able to get everything he wanted except for two things. Thing number 1 was that he was unable to get Disney to be fully transparent when it comes to their dealings with China. And thing number 2 was that he was unable to get a seat on the board. However, Disney did acquiesce to everything else, including the release of the dividend. And so now that is out there and it's lackluster, Disney doesn't have as much in their pocket to be able to defend him away. We'll see how this goes. They've done a all stops, nothing barred at this point kind of method, because they've already added 2 people to the board, including restoring a board seat to try to block Peltz. But again, with what Elon Musk continues to say, I always wonder, Elon Musk has $1 billion as pocket change. He could throw that at Peltz and say, you know what, take care of this company. And frankly, there have been a lot of people valiant, as you are now returning, and so make sure you take control of your mute and all that.
I've got
but
it.
as you return,
I was listening. Yeah,
there are a lot of people who wonder why Musk is specifically going after Disney instead of Apple or Microsoft or some of these other companies that had joined in that boycott. I think it's because he has, and by the way, folks, I'm not a cheerleader for Elon Musk, but it would be stupid to not recognize he must be incredibly intelligent given what he's achieved, which is maybe unprecedented. But I think he's going after Disney because it's the most visual way for him to achieve his goal, which is to take on the woke ideology and stop it. So
I have a question.
That's one thing.
Guys.
I actually had a
question.
few thoughts on that too, but yeah, go ahead.
How much do you believe Mr. Peltz knows what's in the chute at Disney?
now that he has Jay Rasulo, he knows a lot.
So my so my
We're getting
question
there.
is, obviously, anytime I haven't been personally involved in something like this, but I've been with companies that are doing badly. It's usually much worse than they admit.
Paul, which position at a company knows the most?
The CFO.
Okay. He's got the former CFO who was at Disney from 1982.
Right. So
Yeah.
so they must know what's in the food chain for the next 2-3 years.
Oh yeah.
And they're trying to deal with that problem now is what I'm suspecting. Would you agree with that?
You mean Disney's trying to deal with it, or you think that Peltz is trying to deal with it?
Peltz, they're going, if we don't step in now, this is my supposition, that if we know how bad they're planning for the next 3 years, we know that they're not going to shift the yoke of this DEI stuff off their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
They're not moving. I don't see any evidence of them
I see
moving
what
it at all.
Paul's saying. Like, yeah, Peltz sees what's coming up in the next few years, and he's like, this is not gonna
Right.
help our
So
cause.
he's trying to
So he's
step
trying
in
to
now.
steer in now away. And I agree with you, Paul, and I think you're right. And
Okay, that's what I'm asking. you,
and I
smarter
also
people.
think on the Elon Musk side of things, I think that you're right, Pro. I think Disney is the most prolific of all these companies that he could go after.
Right.
B,
Who's
though-
gonna cheer the most if you punch somebody for boycotting your service?
Well, not just
Oh,
that, they are kind of the leader of this whole thing, right? Like they're one of the last ones left. I've talked about the final reef for a while, and I've said it's going to come from Disney,
Mm-hmm.
and we're kind of seeing that now. They're kind of backed into a corner with this woke crap, and again, I think Elon may have a personal interest in this. Look, he loves geeky stuff. I mean, I'm sure he likes Star Wars. I'm sure he likes Marvel. I'm sure there's things that he's watched go to the wayside that he's pissed about. So I'm sure he has a personal investment in this idea too. Plus, as far as X goes, Disney was probably one of the biggest advertisers. And not only that, people talk about Disney stuff all the time. I mean, just looking at the trending right now, you got Disney Star Wars, cancel pigs, stuff like that. That's all kind of related to Star Wars and Disney and other things like that. So Disney is constantly trending. Again, I'm sure he sees this as just not just that, but a cultural thing, right? Because Disney kind of leads the culture, and they have for like the last 20, 25, 30 years, especially with the where things are going with pop culture and entertainment.
Well, the thing with Disney is, Tom, you're right. And that boils down to the fact that of all the companies that, as y'all were talking about, that Elon could have chosen to target in his response, Disney is by far and away the weakest and most vulnerable.
In what sense? Why would he target it?
Well, maybe a poor choice of words on my part. I don't think he deliberately targeted Disney, but Disney is the most vocal, right? Disney is the one that comes out and pushes back. And if there's anybody on social media right now who's going to be honest about the state of things, and has even brought up Disney before, if you recall, when Elon Musk was making his $40-some-odd billion play to acquire Twitter a couple of years ago, whatever it was, when that started. Remember when the Twitter people, the CEO out there, and all the C-suite executives were basically lying through their teeth on the number of bot accounts? Oh, yeah, no, it's only like 5%. And Elon's like, bull crap. It's way more than that. Bob Iger has a clip from several years ago talking about, whether true or not, where Disney was, quote-unquote, considering acquiring Twitter, which part of me can believe because Bob Iger never met a bank account that he didn't want to write a check from to buy something, right? Especially when it's Disney money. Yeah. So, but Bob Iger said, we looked at it, and there was way too many fake accounts. So here's what Elon knows.
Well, does that count when you own most of those fake accounts?
You jumped the gun on me there.
We know
sorry about that, Valiant.
So that's the
They're
point.
all ours.
Wait, that's the point, is that Elon is sitting there in there now going, well, most of these bot accounts floating around that are active day to day, because Disney is always in the public zeitgeist, right? Apple's not really in the public zeitgeist. What's Apple in the zeitgeist for? Selling iPhones.
Only when they pop up with something, like an iPhone or something like that.
They're a product
No, and I was going to bring up that
Disney
too,
is an entertainment, and they deliberately inject themselves into the social and political conversation, unlike Apple, by and large.
I was going to say, going back to like your question earlier, Paul, I think that Elon may have also, I think you're right, Valiant. I think that he has already seen how much Disney has infiltrated Twitter.
Yes.
Right? So that's why he knows how bad of a situation this is over there and what they're doing. I think you're right. I think all these things mixed in a bowl gives you what we could see in the next few weeks to months.
You don't think Elon wants to buy a chunk of Disney?
He might go after some shares just to help Peltz.
I mean, if Paul, if you had $10 in your pocket and it would dramatically affect Disney, that's probably about the percentage of his worth relative to you that, he could throw at Disney and say, you know what, let's muck things up over there. Very quickly, because I know Valiant's got a point. I just want to explain to the audience why Elon Musk is the type of person, and maybe the only person that can do this. Again, not cheerleading, but simply breaking down the facts. The reason that they hate Elon Musk and they cannot do anything about him, including governments, is because he privately owns SpaceX. And because SpaceX is in control of 80% of all of the commercialized space travel and rockets. 16% is China and 4% is everything else in the world. So he literally has 80% of all the private. Now, I guess they could hit him with monopoly stuff, but then they're not riding his rockets anymore if they do that. So they can't do that. So literally he's got them all right where he wants them. And they can hate him. They can try to sink him on Twitter. I guess they could go after Tesla if they wanted to, but he's got SpaceX. And he can say what he wants. He's got go fund yourself money.
Exactly. And to the point of Elon Musk engaging with Disney from an ownership perspective, who's to say that Elon doesn't already have $10, $15, $20 million worth of Disney under his control?
He might.
He's worth billions. I mean, it's he probably like most people, if he owns, guys in his position, a lot of times, if they're going to invest in the market, they're going to invest in individual securities so they can control the tax ramifications of holding such securities, when to buy, when to sell, as opposed to an ETF or a mutual fund that are going to make those decisions for you and force capital gains out. He would want to control it. I got clients that are not anywhere near what Elon Musk is, but I've got some high net worth clients that are, we have to constantly be cognizant of tax implications of anything that we do. And that's why I'm so busy this time of year, because end of year, this is what we're always looking at. What kind of gains and loss we can take before the end of the year. But for guys like Elon, I mean, he probably already has control. And there's nothing to say that if Elon decides, and look, guys, seriously, imagine for a second, do y'all not think that maybe, just maybe, somebody from Trian has reached out to Elon, or perhaps vice versa by now? I don't think if I'm Nelson Peltz, I'm just sitting there, watch the biggest, richest dude on earth taking Disney to the woodshed week after week after week in the middle of the biggest proxy fight that Nelson's had in his 5-6 decades of his career as an investor, as an activist investor. Do you think he's just sitting there going, let's see what Elon does next? No, I promise you he's probably tried to reach out to him. Now, I'm not saying they're going to work together, but I don't think Peltz and Trian are just sitting there watching what I think they're trying to ask him, hey.
Well, watch what happens when I ask this question. And again, no financial advice being given here, folks. Please don't take it that way.
No.
Valiant, what would happen if Elon Musk bought a huge portion of Disney shares right now? What would happen to their stock value?
They would go up.
I don't want to say it because I'm not going to get in trouble with YouTube. But if people out there, use your own imagination, I would pose it to the audience. If Elon Musk were to grab a massive chunk of Disney stock, let's pretend, hypothetical for the moment, folks, just pure hypothetical. If Elon Musk were to grab a chunk of Disney stock, another $1 billion worth, $500 million worth, I think, in my world, Elon doesn't even have to grab that much. It's
right.
The fact that Elon Musk took a significant stake in Disney. Even if he just picked up 100 million shares and said, I'm giving these 100, not giving the shares, but giving the proxy of these shares to Peltz and Trian to vote.
It would also tell everybody else he might get in more. So it would create this instant.
That would light it up. And let me tell you what, I think that's one of the things that I promise you right now, even though the chances of that happening as of right now are not there, I mean, they might change tomorrow. I promise you, there's a conversation that's been had inside the Disney boardroom with Bob Iger, that board, and the CFO about what if this happens. Ron?
Well, last time we discussed this, I offhandedly said, Elon's plate is full. I can't imagine that this would interest him. But on reflection and listening to you guys speak, it does occur to me that it would be completely rational for Elon to look for a little bit of internal leverage on Disney, because after all, he considers its current management to be a threat to his business.
Right.
And
Exactly.
if he can push back on that with ownership and with forming alliances with the insurgents, that would make actually a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
It would. And chat, I just happened to glance over. I don't often catch the chat, but I see some of the messages. If I misspoke, I'm sorry. I meant $100 million worth of Disney, not 100 million shares. If I said shares when I said that, I'm sorry. But I mean, a relatively, it's still a huge stake, but it's not the $2 billion stake that Ike Perlmutter has that he put behind Peltz. So but just the name of Elon Musk alone being involved and throwing his full weight and support behind Peltz, that could be huge. And honestly, if I'm Musk and I want to do that, I don't know if I would drop that until, say, February, like right
Exactly.
when.
Because from the Peltz point of view, he's already being painted in the Disney investor world as the Dark Knight. And
Exactly. Yeah.
having Musk, as a member of his team or on his side isn't necessarily a warm and fuzzy feeling for a lot of people who might have to be won over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't. And again, the ballots for the actual voting. Remember, we're talking about all of this is going to hinge, for those of you that may not remember or maybe don't know, they're new to this. All of this is going to hinge around the annual stockholder meeting that happens in April. Now, typically, they will send out ballots for stockholders to vote sometime in, I think, usually late January to early February. They usually announce it right around the time, like early February is when we will get the next Disney quarterly earnings report. So we usually have ballots going out around that time for the annual shareholder meeting that's roughly 2 months after that. That, I think, is when that's when the real big push is going to happen for Nelson Peltz. He doesn't need to make a lot of noise right now. We're coming up against Christmas and New Year's and don't need anything else right now. You know, you put the name of Jay Rasselo out there, which we need to talk about here in just a bit. But you let all that get in the ether and you sit on it, let everybody enjoy their holidays. And then after the first of the year, that's when the machine cranks up. This is not unlike releasing a movie into theaters, right? You don't start spending all of your marketing energy and money 6 months before the movie comes out. You do it 2 to 3 weeks before the movie comes out. You ramp it up right there, right as it's about to release. So too is something like this with this proxy fight. Right now, Nelson Peltz is working behind the scenes. He's trying to get as much support as he can. We've already seen other hedge funds that have ownership stakes in Disney, although none of them terribly huge, but have thrown their support behind, hey, give Peltz a chance kind of thing, you know, because what we got right now ain't working. And I've been working on a video on this now for like the last week and a half. In fact, I've got 4 pages of it already scripted, and I never script videos. I just haven't had time to sit down and do this, but it's going to kind of be a very comprehensive thing involving all of this that hopefully will be coming up this week, so stay tuned. But
make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.